And then he says, so there's no tasawwuf without fiqh. Because the sidq al-tawajjuh is what the tasawwuf is, but it has to be in accord with what's pleasing. And then he says, because you can only know the decrees or the rulings of God, the exoteric ones, the external ones, only by that, by fiqh. It's fiqh that teaches you how to bathe, how to pray, the ritual, formal components, because tasawwuf is dealing with the inner state during those rituals. But you have to do it through the form of the ritual. That if you don't have the form, then the inner state is not going to be able to function as it should. And so he says, وَلَا فِقْهَ إِلَّا بِالتَّصَوُّفِ, and you can't have fiqh, the formal, without the internal. So you can't have the internal without the external. You can't have the esoteric without the exoteric. You can't have the fruit without the hull or the exterior that protects the fruit. Right? You can't benefit from a fruit if it has no exterior protection. So, and then he says, and وَلَهُمَا إِلَّا بِإِيمَانٍ, you can't have either of them without iman. So one of them without the other two, it's not. لَا يَصِحُ وَاحِدٌ مِّنْهُمَا, one without the other is impossible. You can't have it. فَلَزِمَ الْجَمِيعُ لِتَلَازُمِهَا فِي الْحُكْمِ. So you have to have both because of the interdependency of one upon the other in the hukum, in this, the outward and the inward. Like the interdependence of spirits with bodies. So he's giving you an analogy now. This is a type of reasoning. He's showing you an analogy that enables you to understand this. So he says, وَلَا وُجُودَ لَهَا إِلَّا فِيهَا. You can't have the spirit except in a body. You can't have the spirit except in the body. كَمَا لَا حَيَاةَ لَهَا إِلَّا بِهَا. And in the same way, you cannot have a body that has life without the spirit. So he's saying the fiqh is the body, the sidq al-tawajjuh is the spirit. Ibn Ata'illah in the Hikam, he says, al-a'malu, the deeds are bodies. And he said that the spirit, the arwah, are the ikhlas, is the sincerity in the body. So your deeds are like bodies, they're forms. But those forms are animated by your sincerity. And then he says, and this is why Imam Malik said, and this is a famous statement attributed to Imam Malik that's mentioned in many books. Whoever does tasawwuf, and this was a word we know that was used during his time already. It's very early. It's used very early. And Imam Malik was aware of the Sufis. And obviously, as somebody with sidq al-tawajjuh, he himself has a big portion of this science, even though he didn't teach it formally in the way that it was formalized later by Imam al-Junayd. And so he says, whoever becomes a Sufi, man tasawwafa, walam yatafaqqa, and he doesn't learn fiqh alongside it, faqad tazandaq, he will go astray. He'll become like a heretic. Zindiq is a heretic. وَمَنْ تَفَقَّهَ وَلَمْ يَتَصَوَّفْ فَقَدْ تَفَسَّقْ. And if he learns fiqh without sincerity, without the sidq al-tawajjuh, then he becomes a fasiq. So he'll be in a state of disobedience. وَمَنْ جَمَعَ بَيْنَهُمَا فَقَدْ تَحَقَّقْ. And the one that brings the two together, he's the one who's realized. This is what Imam al-Shafi'i, he said, صُوفِيٌّ وَفَقِيهٌ فَكُنْ لَيْسَ وَاحِدًا فَإِنِّي وَحَقِّي لَإِيَّاكَ أَنصَحُ. The Sufi and the Faqih, don't be one of them without the other. And he said, by Allah, I'm giving you sound advice. This is in his diwan, Imam Shafi'i. He said, because the Faqih, without the tasawwuf, he doesn't have the spirit, and the Sufi, without the fiqh, he doesn't have the protection of the... So you need both. This is what he's saying. And then he explains, Imam Sidi Ahmed Zarruq explains, Tazandaq al-awwal, the reason the first becomes a heretic is because he'll end up saying bil-jabr al-mujib. He will because he'll have spiritual states, but he's not protected by the Sharia, he's not protected by a mental understanding, and so he'll end up saying things that are heretical. One of them is that he won't see asbab. And so he'll actually go into pure determinism without recognizing free will. And then you go into what's called the antinomial state, where antinomials were people that did not see the Sharia as binding on them, that they were free from the Sharia because they had achieved the haqiqah. And Imam Junaid was asked about that, and they said, what do you say about a man who said, لَقَدْ وَصَلْتُ حَتَّى رُفِعَتْ عَنِّي الشَّرِيعَةِ, I have arrived, and so I'm no longer bound by the law. He said, نعم قد وصل إلى الجحيم. He's arrived, but he's arrived to hell. So, because he'll negate the hikmah and the ahkam. He'll end up negating the hikmah and the ahkam. And this is why Ibn Mashish, in his famous prayer, he says that he seeks refuge min awhal at-tawheed, from the dangers of tawheed. Because you can have an experience of tawheed, of pure unity, where you lose sight of sharia. And some of the ecstatic Sufis have shatahat that are famous about this. Subhani, glory to me. Ma tahta jubbati siwa Allah. You know, things like that. They made these utterances. That came from the danger of having this profound experience of unity without having the protection of the constructs that give it a proper understanding. And then he says, تفسق الثاني, the second one, the faqih without tasawwuf, he goes astray because لخلو عمره من التوجه الحاجب منهما, because he doesn't have in his actions the tawajjuh al-hajib, this tawajjuh that will protect him from these going astray. Like he won't have that sincerity that will protect him from the dangers that a faqih without tasawwuf has, or the Sufi without fiqh has. Those are the two dangers. And if he doesn't have the sidq al-tawajjuh, then he falls into one of those two dangers. And he says, so he falls into ma'asiyah with Allah on the one hand, and then that anything that he does, it's done with the condition of ikhlas, al-mushtarat fil amal. He's supposed to have ikhlas. That's a condition of any action, is sincerity, that you do it with a pure intention. Inna Allaha tayyibun wa la yaqbalu illa tayyiba. Allah is pure and He only accepts purity. So if you don't have purity in your intentions, then you don't. وَتَحَقِّقَ الثَّالِث لِقِيَامِهِ بِالْحَقِيقَةِ مِنْ عَيْنَ التَّمَاسُكِ بِالْحَقِّ. So the third one has realization, تَحَقَّقَ. He has realization because he is fulfilling the reality, بالحقيقة, في عين التماسك بالحق, in the essence of his firmness, of his state of firmness in the truth. He's fulfilling that reality, which has an exoteric and an esoteric component. So he's solid, he's firm in his qiyam bil-haq. He has the both sides of it. So he says, so understand that.